If you feel tired, unfocused, and undisciplined, this video is about you. Not because you are weak, not because you lack willpower, but because your dopamine system has been hijacked by the modern world. You have been conditioned to live in a state of constant stimulation, where every idle moment is filled with a screen, a notification, a distraction that promises pleasure but delivers emptiness. The ancient Stoics understood this pattern 2,000 years before smartphones existed, and they developed a system to counter it. A system that does not rely on motivation or temporary bursts of willpower, but on the fundamental reprogramming of how you experience desire itself. Most people believe they need more discipline, more motivation, more self-control, but what they actually need is to recalibrate their dopamine baseline, to return to a state where focus and effort feel natural rather than agonizing. This is not another productivity hack or motivational speech. This is about understanding the neurochemical prison you're trapped in and using ancient Stoic principles to escape it. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why you cannot focus, why discipline feels impossible, and most importantly, how to rewire your brain so that discipline becomes automatic rather than forced. If you want to go deeper and reprogram your mind at a subconscious level, check the link in the description for the system I personally use to train discipline from the subconscious, not from willpower alone. Act 1. The false problem of discipline. The word discipline has been corrupted in the modern world because we treat it as if it were a moral failing, as if undisciplined people are simply weak or lazy or lacking in character. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human brain works, because discipline is not a personality trait. It is a neurological state that is either supported or sabotaged by your environment. When you cannot focus, when you cannot sit down and do deep work, when you find yourself scrolling through social media for hours despite knowing it is destroying your potential, the problem is not that you are weak. The problem is that your dopamine system has been hijacked by an environment that was engineered to exploit it. Every time you check your phone, every time you watch a short-form video, every time you consume low-effort content, you're training your brain to expect constant stimulation, and anything that requires sustained effort begins to feel unbearable. The cycle is simple and brutal. You receive a stimulus, your brain releases dopamine in anticipation of a reward, you get a brief hit of pleasure, and then you crash into a state of emptiness and self-disgust, which drives you to seek the next stimulus to escape that feeling. This is not discipline failure. This is neurochemical conditioning, and it is happening to millions of people who believe they are simply lazy, when in reality, they are trapped in a dopamine feedback loop that was designed by engineers whose only goal is to maximize engagement, not to help you build a meaningful life. The human brain was designed to function in an environment where dopamine was earned through effort, where focus and discipline were rewarded with survival, where every moment was not filled with artificial stimulation that short-circuits your reward system. Modern life has inverted this relationship completely, and now we live in a world where dopamine is available on demand, where every moment of boredom can be instantly escaped, where your attention is constantly pulled away from anything that requires sustained effort. The impact of this is catastrophic because you lose the ability to be alone with your thoughts. You lose the ability to sit in silence without reaching for a distraction. You lose the ability to tolerate the discomfort that comes with real work. And eventually, you lose your sense of agency because you're living in a state of constant reaction rather than deliberate action. But here is the truth that will set you free. Dopamine itself is not the enemy. Act 2. Dopamine is not the problem. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It is the molecule of anticipation, of desire, of motivation. And when it functions properly, it is what drives you to pursue goals, to work towards something meaningful, to feel satisfaction when you achieve something that required effort. The problem is not dopamine. The problem is the sources from which you are getting it. Because your brain does not distinguish between dopamine from scrolling social media and dopamine from completing a difficult project. All it knows is that one requires almost no effort and delivers instant gratification, while the other requires sustained focus and delayed gratification. And when you have trained your brain to expect the easy dopamine, the hard dopamine becomes nearly impossible to access. This is why people who consume large amounts of social media, pornography, junk food, and other forms of easy stimulation find it almost unbearable to sit down and do deep work, because their dopamine baseline has been raised so high that normal activities feel dull and unrewarding by comparison. The neuroscience is clear. When you repeatedly expose your brain to high dopamine stimuli that require no effort, your dopamine receptors begin to downregulate, meaning you need more and more stimulation to feel the same level of reward, and activities that used to feel satisfying now feel boring or even painful. This is the exact mechanism behind addiction, and it applies not just to drugs and alcohol, but to any behavior that delivers dopamine without effort, which includes most of modern digital entertainment. The real tragedy is that when you're trapped in this state, effort itself becomes aversive, which means the very thing that would save you, the act of working towards something meaningful, feels like torture, and so you avoid it and seek more easy dopamine, which further deepens the problem. This is the dopamine trap, and it is why motivation-based approaches to discipline always fail, because motivation is downstream from dopamine sensitivity, and if your dopamine system is dysregulated, no amount of motivational content will fix the underlying problem. The solution is not to eliminate dopamine, it is to reset your dopamine baseline so that effort feels rewarding again, so that focus feels natural, so that discipline becomes automatic rather than something you have to force through sheer willpower. And this is exactly what the Stoics understood long before modern neuroscience confirmed it. Act 3. What the Stoics had understood. The Stoics lived in a world that was radically different from ours, but the fundamental problem they faced was the same: how to maintain discipline and focus in a world full of distractions and easy pleasures. Epictetus taught that the essence of philosophy is the governance of assent, meaning that you must control what you allow into your mind, what you give your attention to, what you permit to influence your desires. Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, wrote in his private journal that the impediment to action advances action, that what stands in the way becomes the way, and that the most important battle is not against external enemies, but against the softness and weakness of your own soul. Seneca warned that the greatest obstacle to living a good life is not external hardship, but internal softness, the inability to tolerate discomfort, the habit of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain at all costs. The Stoics did not view desire as something to be suppressed or eliminated. They understood that desire is a fundamental part of human nature, but they also understood that desire must be directed, that it must be aligned with virtue and reason rather than allowed to run wild in pursuit of every fleeting pleasure. This is the key insight that separates Stoicism from modern self-help. The Stoics did not try to eliminate desire. They trained themselves to desire the right things, to find pleasure in virtue, to take satisfaction in effort, to feel rewarded by discipline itself. This is exactly what a dopamine detox does at a neurological level. It retrains your brain to find pleasure in effort, to desire meaningful work, to feel satisfaction from discipline rather than from constant stimulation. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort. They deliberately subjected themselves to cold, hunger, silence, and solitude, not because they were masochists, but because they understood that comfort weakens the soul and discomfort strengthens it. They knew that if you never experience boredom, you will never develop the capacity for deep thought, and if you never tolerate discomfort, you will never develop the capacity for meaningful action. The Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, the meditation on potential hardships, was a way of training the mind to expect difficulty rather than ease, to see obstacles as opportunities rather than threats, to cultivate resilience in the face of adversity. This is the mental framework that makes discipline possible, because when you expect effort, when you see discomfort as normal rather than abnormal, when you do not require constant stimulation to feel alive, then discipline is no longer a struggle. It is simply the natural state of your mind. The modern world has inverted this completely because we are taught to avoid discomfort at all costs, to seek pleasure and ease, to fill every moment with stimulation. And as a result, we have become soft, unfocused, and incapable of sustained effort. The Stoic Dopamine Detox is about reversing this process, about returning to a state where effort feels natural, where focus feels effortless, where discipline becomes automatic because your brain has been retrained to desire the right things. Now let me show you the exact Stoic Dopamine Detox Protocol. Act 4. The Stoic Dopamine Detox Protocol. The Stoic Dopamine Detox is not a quick fix or a temporary cleanse. It is a systematic process of retraining your brain to function in a state of low stimulation, where focus and effort feel natural rather than agonizing. This protocol is divided into 4 stages, each designed to address a specific aspect of dopamine dysregulation, and each stage builds on the previous one to create a complete reset of your neurochemical baseline. The first stage is the suppression of easy stimuli, which means removing all sources of instant gratification from your environment for a defined period of time. This includes your phone, social media, short-form video content, pornography, junk food, video games, and any other source of dopamine that does not require effort. The reason this is the first stage is because you cannot retrain your brain if you are still exposing it to the same stimuli that created the problem, and most people underestimate how addicted they are to their devices until they try to go without them for even a few hours. During this stage, your phone should be physically removed from your workspace, ideally placed in another room or given to someone else, because proximity creates temptation, and temptation creates failure. All notifications should be disabled, not just muted but completely turned off, because even the knowledge that notifications are waiting for you creates a background level of anxiety and distraction that destroys focus. Multitasking must be eliminated entirely, which means you work on one task at a time with full attention until that task is complete or until you reach a natural stopping point. This is harder than it sounds because your brain has been trained to switch between tasks constantly, and sitting with one task for an extended period will initially feel unbearable. But this discomfort is the signal that you are beginning to retrain your dopamine system. The second stage is the return of boredom, which is the most psychologically difficult part of the detox because modern people have completely lost the ability to tolerate boredom. Boredom is not a negative state to be avoided. It is a neurologically necessary phase during which your brain recalibrates its dopamine baseline and begins to find pleasure in lower stimulation activities. When you first remove all sources of easy dopamine, your brain will panic because it has been conditioned to expect constant stimulation, and the absence of that stimulation creates a state of acute discomfort that feels like withdrawal. This is exactly what it is because your brain is going through a withdrawal process as your dopamine receptors begin to upregulate and your baseline begins to reset. During this phase, you will experience intense restlessness, irritability, anxiety, and an overwhelming urge to seek stimulation. And this is the moment when most people fail because they interpret these feelings as a sign that something is wrong, when in reality these feelings are a sign that the process is working. The key to this stage is to sit with the discomfort, to allow yourself to be bored, to resist the urge to fill every moment with activity or distraction. This is where the Stoic practice of negative visualization becomes useful, because you can remind yourself that this discomfort is temporary, that it is serving a purpose, that you are choosing this difficulty in order to strengthen your mind. The boredom phase typically lasts between 3 and 7 days, depending on how dysregulated your dopamine system was to begin with. And once you emerge from it, you will notice that activities that used to feel boring now feel interesting, that focus that used to feel impossible now feels natural, that effort that used to feel agonizing now feels rewarding. The third stage is the discipline of attention, which means training yourself to direct your focus deliberately rather than allowing it to be pulled by external stimuli. This stage begins once you have reset your dopamine baseline and you're able to tolerate boredom without reaching for a distraction, and it involves the systematic practice of single tasking with full attention. The protocol is simple. You choose one task. You set a clear intention for what you want to accomplish. You define a specific time period during which you will work on that task, and you eliminate all distractions during that period. This is not the same as time blocking or productivity hacks. This is about training your brain to sustain attention on a single object without becoming distracted, which is a skill that must be developed through practice. The Stoic practice of prosok, or attention to the present moment, is directly applicable here because the goal is not to achieve some future outcome, but to be fully present with the task in front of you, to give it your complete attention, to experience the process of work itself as intrinsically rewarding rather than as a means to an end. This is the shift that makes discipline effortless, because when you're fully present with your work, when you're not thinking about the future or the past, when you're not wishing you were doing something else, then work ceases to feel like work and becomes a form of meditation. The fourth and final stage is Stoic privation, which involves the deliberate practice of voluntary discomfort in order to strengthen your tolerance for difficulty. The Stoics understood that comfort weakens the soul and discomfort strengthens it, and they practiced voluntary hardship as a form of mental training. In the context of a dopamine detox, this means deliberately subjecting yourself to experiences that are uncomfortable but not dangerous, such as cold exposure, extended periods of silence, time spent in solitude without any form of entertainment, and the voluntary simplification of your lifestyle. Cold exposure, such as cold showers or ice baths, is particularly effective because it triggers a dopamine release that is earned rather than given, and it trains your brain to associate discomfort with reward, which is the opposite of what modern life teaches. Silence is essential because it forces you to confront your own thoughts without distraction, and most people discover that their inner dialogue is chaotic and undisciplined, which is a direct result of constant external stimulation. Solitude is necessary because it removes the social validation that many people have become addicted to, and it forces you to develop a sense of self that is independent of external approval. Voluntary simplicity means reducing the number of choices and stimuli in your environment, which reduces decision fatigue and creates space for focus. These practices are not meant to be permanent. They are meant to reset your baseline, to remind you that you are capable of far more discomfort than you believe, and to train your brain to find satisfaction in effort rather than ease. Most people fail dopamine detoxes because they try to control their behavior consciously through willpower alone, but willpower is a limited resource, and conscious control is exhausting. If you want discipline to become automatic, not forced, I highly recommend the Subconscious Millionaire System linked below, which is designed to reprogram your mind at a deeper level so that discipline becomes your default state rather than something you have to fight for. Act 5. The Forgotten Key, the Subconscious. The reason most people fail to maintain discipline is not because they lack information or understanding. It is because they're trying to change their behavior through conscious effort alone, and conscious effort is fundamentally limited because it requires constant vigilance, constant decision-making, constant resistance against your natural impulses. The truth is that most of your behavior is not controlled by your conscious mind. It is controlled by your subconscious mind, which operates according to deeply ingrained patterns, habits, and associations that were formed over years or even decades. Your subconscious mind is responsible for your automatic behaviors, your default emotional responses, your habitual thought patterns, and most importantly, your sense of identity, which is the lens through which you interpret every experience and every decision. If your subconscious identity is that of an undisciplined person, someone who struggles with focus, someone who always gives into temptation, then no amount of conscious effort will create lasting change, because you will always revert to the behaviors that align with your identity. This is why New Year's resolutions fail, why motivation fades, why people can follow a strict routine for a few weeks or even months and then suddenly collapse back into their old patterns. The conscious mind can force change temporarily, but the subconscious mind determines what becomes permanent, and unless you reprogram your subconscious identity, you will always be fighting an uphill battle. The Stoics understood this principle intuitively, even though they did not have the language of modern psychology to describe it. When Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of ruling your own mind, when Epictetus taught about the governance of assent, when Seneca warned about the dangers of a soft soul, they were all pointing to the same fundamental truth. Lasting change happens at the level of identity, not behavior. A Stoic does not force himself to be disciplined through willpower. He He becomes disciplined by transforming his identity, by conditioning himself to see discipline as natural, by training his mind to automatically choose effort over ease. This is exactly what the subconscious millionaire system does. It bypasses the conscious mind and works directly on the subconscious patterns that determine your automatic behavior. Instead of relying on motivation, which is unreliable, or willpower, which is exhausting, it creates new neural pathways that make discipline feel automatic, natural, effortless. The system uses techniques that are designed to reprogram your subconscious identity so that you no longer have to force yourself to be disciplined. You simply are disciplined because that is who you have become at the deepest level. This is not about temporary behavior change. This is about permanent identity transformation, and it is the missing piece that most people never address because they are too focused on tactics and strategies rather than on the underlying programming that controls their behavior. The dopamine detox will reset your neurochemical baseline. It will retrain your brain to tolerate effort. It will restore your ability to focus, but without subconscious reprogramming, there is a high probability that you will eventually revert to your old patterns because your identity has not changed. If you combine the dopamine detox with subconscious conditioning, you create a synergistic effect where the detox provides the neurological reset and the subconscious work provides the permanent identity shift. And the result is discipline that feels effortless because it is no longer something you do, it is something you are. You are not weak, you're not lazy, you're not lacking in discipline or willpower or character. You are overstimulated. You have been conditioned by an environment that was engineered to hijack your attention and exploit your dopamine system. And the result is that you have lost the ability to focus, to tolerate discomfort, to do the deep work that creates a meaningful life. The solution is not more motivation, not more productivity hacks, not more self-help content that gives you a temporary boost and then fades. The solution is a complete reset of your dopamine baseline through the Stoic dopamine detox, combined with a reprogramming of your subconscious identity so that discipline becomes automatic rather than forced. The Stoics understood this principle 2,000 years ago, and modern neuroscience has confirmed what they knew through experience. Lasting change happens at the level of identity, not behavior. If you are serious about taking control of your mind, your discipline, and your future, start where real change happens, in the subconscious. The subconscious millionaire system is linked below. This is not motivation, this is conditioning. This is how you stop fighting yourself and start becoming the person you know you are capable of being.